Hey, everybody, and welcome back to what's, I guess we could term as episode 4 of our Sacred Margins videos. We've been talking, our conversation's been about prophets and priests. So if you haven't watched those videos, you can go back and look, and we talk about what a prophet is, what a priest is, and what those roles are. We're going to talk today about kind of the relationship between those two dynamics. When we talk about prophets and priests, there is some tension between these two things. And we often view conflict or tension as really bad things when instead they're a very needed element. You know, we often look at others who are different from us or fulfill a different role with suspicion. We get our feelings hurt. We like to kind of defend our own positions. But that tension that we have between those who are prophets and those who are priests are really what make the system healthy. And that's what we wanted to talk about today. So as we recognize kind of the need for one another, Trevor, as we've talked about, you are a prophet. I am very much a priest. So can we talk about our need for one another and why when we recognize that tension, it's really recognizing a need that someone else fulfills for us. So as a
Yeah.
prophet, what does that look like for you?
Well, I think the thing that the prophets tend to forget is that um, the implications of the things that they are passionate about um, are in the lives of actual human beings working in actual human systems. And it's not an abstract idea, and it's not something out there that if this is going to, so whatever it is, diversity or whatever the thing is that we're talking about and saying the church needs to be engaged in this, to just say that is never enough. And so the prophets need the priest to speak in and say, okay, I hear what you're saying, but let me tell you what happens when I go and have coffee with, Sheila from down the road.
Right.
And I think prophets really need to keep that in mind, that there's real people. It's not abstract, and that change is not something that happens like that. It's slow, and you talked about the peaks and the valleys last week, or you can almost see it as a spiral. You move forward, and then you move back, and you move forward and move back. And prophets tend to get impatient and just say, "Nope, fix it," like that old Saturday Night Live sketch. Fix it. That's that's what we do. So
Yeah.
I think that's the word that prophets need from priests.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, and as priests, as we look towards the other side at prophets, if we do talk about peaks and valleys of spiritual growth, the reality is, and I think the thing that everyone who's been in ministry understands is that getting that kickstart out of the status quo of when you reach that valley, boy, you often feel like there's a boulder that you're just trying to push back uphill, and it's the prophet who can come in. And whether it's because of I need the kick, or the system needs the kick, that it does take that outside voice that challenging the status quo because we very much like the status quo in the system. We are made to maintain it, and it does take someone who stands a little bit outside who can speak that. And instead of devaluing that and feeling like that is a threat, that is a necessary part. Because if spiritual growth is like that, and I absolutely think it is, then often you need that kind of kick to get you back up the hill again and get you moving. And too many times we get settled where we are. And I can't, as a priest, sometimes say the things that need to be said in a way that will actually move towards change that actually needs to happen. It's because I can't fulfill both those roles totally by myself. And I need someone with that vision who sometimes sees things that I don't, who can say the things that I don't, that can really call us to be different in a way that actually affects change.
and that's, to me, the whole point of the body of Christ is you have different people with different perspectives. And what we tend to do is we just say, oh, anything different, let's just keep it away, rather than embracing, hey, your different perspective is actually what's going to help me and what's
Right.
actually going to help me grow, whether it's the prophet listening to the priest or the priest listening to the prophet. Just because they are different, And like you said, there's that tension, and we want to avoid conflict, and we don't want to, hear what the other side has to say a lot of the times. But if you don't have that tension and you don't have those two ideas coming up against each other, the prophet is useless because it's disconnected from real life, and the priest is just doing the same thing over and over again and not helping anybody. And so until we let that happen, it doesn't work.
And that's the truth. This isn't just a church thing. I mean, this is exactly what we see in any arena. I do find it's interesting that you're kind of going to be settling into an academic environment where you can work on things almost in the lab. When and you talked about as a prophet, you have to realize at some point there are real life applications for that, but it's hard to really do research or anything. You need that lab time. You need to work on the abstract concepts, and that's what prophets do sometimes. It says this is right and this is good, and then we need to come back and say how does it work in the real world, and that's the tension you find in the corporate world. You find it in education arena. You find this everywhere. This dynamic and that tension is really, really important.
Well, and we're just, as people, we tend towards stasis. We want stability. We want that we want a status quo because it's easier. And there's actually nothing wrong with coming in and saying, hey, we want a certain way of doing things and a certain way of certain habits and norms and those kind of things. But when those habits and norms become the only way you're willing to think about something or do something, that's when the problem comes in. Yeah. So you have that tension where the prophet can come in and disrupt, and the priest comes in and creates the stability, and then disrupt, and then and again, one without the other doesn't work. Yeah. I was reading this week about evangelicals during slavery and the civil rights movement. And it's fascinating because when it wasn't working, it was because the people didn't get loud enough about it. The people didn't challenge the status quo, and the people were comfortable, and they didn't want to hear the harsh words, and the people who were talking weren't harsh enough. When it worked really well was when church members were actually the ones creating new initiatives. Wow. And so even in that, you can kind of see you have to have both. Once the voice gets loud enough, then it empowers people to go and actually do something about it.
Well, I was just actually playing my guitar just a few minutes ago, and it's very much like a guitar string. When you talk about that tension, the whole purpose of guitar string is to create tension on both ends to just the right level to where it'll produce the sound that it's supposed to produce. And so that you have to get it just right. If the string's too loose, it doesn't work and it sounds awful. It sounds dissonant. And then if it gets too tight, it breaks. So I think one of the things we want to accomplish, and really one of the things we really enjoyed about our relationship in the professional realm and even on a personal level, is because we do come sometimes, we find a lot in common, but we have different viewpoints on a lot of things. We come from different perspectives. And when there's that healthy tension in the middle, things really work well. Just like that string that plays beautifully when it has the right amount of tension. And so one of the things we'll explore a little bit as we talk about this dynamic is that you as a prophet and me as a priest, we're going to explore some things, talk about some things, and use kind of both of these healthy perspectives to find that good tension in the middle to where things work as they should. And we're going to be talking about that a lot and using these different perspectives to hopefully find that beautiful sweet spot in the middle there. But whether you're a prophet or you're a priest, whether you lean one way or the other, that's great. You're just finding, like Trevor said, your purpose in the body of Christ. So as we continue to do this, we welcome your conversation. Hopefully you understand kind of this dynamic, and hopefully it's a blessing to you. So we're going to continue to talk about this dynamic, and hopefully you'll see some more videos from us, and hopefully they're a blessing. So until next time, we'll see you later, and grace and peace.
Bye, guys.